All right, so he was teasing about it the whole weekend, and now he actually finally did it. So on the weekend, Saylor was teasing. He said, we're going to need more charts. Now, that's different from his normal Sunday tweets, because in the normal Sunday tweets, what he says is, we're going to need more dots, or the dots look good. Here he says, we need more charts. And what he was hinting at was, he was hinting at not another Bitcoin purchase, but something else. And that's exactly what he announced today. So if you look at what he actually did today, Strategy raised $1.15 billion, and they did this by selling MSTR, and they did this without buying any Bitcoin. So all they did with the money was that they increased their reserve to be able to pay the dividend to $2.55 billion, which then increases it from the 10 months that he had previously to 17.4 months of dividend coverage. Now, if you followed our debate here on Friday, or on Sunday, when we did a debate with Vinnie Lingham and a couple of others, one of the things that we said here is that he shouldn't buy any more Bitcoin. He should just sit on his hands and do nothing. I guess that this was something which was very, very, very close to that. He sold MSTR, and he sold MSTR, I would say, right in the nick of time. And the reason why I say he sold MSTR right in the nick of time, if you look at the strategy dashboard, what you can see is that the strategy MNAV is exactly at 1, or just under 1, right? And that means that he's selling strategy shares, MicroStrategy shares, at the same value as the underlying Bitcoin. So had he waited for this to go further down, and he had sold those MicroStrategy shares to fund this dividend, he would have diluted the MicroStrategy shareholders. Here, what he did was he actually sold it exactly at an MNAV of 1. So you could say, in the nick of time, he went and sold a whole lot of MSTR shares. He built his cash reserve up to 2.55 billion, which means that now he's got 17.4 months of dividend cover. He can basically sit on his hands and do nothing for the next 17.4 months, which is a year and a half. And that would effectively, he would have enough dividend cover ratio. And the effect of that is quite good. And the reason why the effect of that is quite good is because what he's basically done now, he said to the market, look, I can do nothing now for 17.5 months. I did it without really diluting my MicroStrategy shareholders. I'll show you why I said really in a few seconds, but I can do this without diluting my MicroStrategy shareholders even further. I don't have to do anything for the next 17.4 months except sit back and wait for Bitcoin to recover. And that's exactly what happened when he made the announcement. As you can see, strategy is up 3%. STRC is up at $81. It was at 71.26 before the weekend actually started. And even Bitcoin, if you look at the Bitcoin chart, when this happened, we had a slight spike in the price of Bitcoin, which shows you that some of the reason why Bitcoin is actually down is because the market is actually worried about Saylor. So you can actually see that when Saylor actually announced that over this is the 1 hour chart, we actually spiked to 60,700. We have come down now because I think there are other forces at play here, right? But this just shows you that a lot of the Bitcoin price being suppressed is people worried about Saylor and Saylor's position. And so what he actually did was he actually did a more responsible move, if you want to call it that. And as I think Vinny would say, because he called Michael Saylor a narcissist, you can maybe say a less narcissistic move, a more responsible move. And what he actually did was he sold MSTR shares. He sold them at an MNAV of 1 exactly, and he raised enough money to pay 17.4 months of dividend cover ratio. Now the market must just chill, because MicroStrategy can literally sit here for a year and a half and do nothing. And do nothing, and they would still be fine. And so the whole FUD around MicroStrategy not being able to pay the dividends, I think that will subside, and that will effectively get out the way and let us continue with the market forces. What Saylor also announced, which I think is maybe more important, is this part of here, which is strategy announces a digital credit framework designed to strengthen the digital credit, enhance liquidity, and preserve long-term Bitcoin exposure. Now, effectively, what they're saying here is that they've now created a framework that says strategy has established a repurchase program for up to $1 billion worth of our own digital securities and up to $1 billion of MSTR. So they've got a framework now where they can sell Bitcoin and they can use the proceeds of the Bitcoin to buy either STRC or MSTR. And I remember, it was implied, but they never had the framework in place. Now they've actually got that framework in place, which says, look, if Bitcoin is trading under or over a certain amount, the MNAV is trading over a certain amount, we can buy back our digital credit securities, which is the STRC, and we can buy back up to $1 billion of MSTR, which means that what Saylor is probably going to be doing now is Saylor's going to be buying and selling Bitcoin to get the MSTR MNAV. So if MSTR is trading it under the assets on the Saylor balance sheet, then what they'll do is they'll sell Bitcoin and buy MSTR. And when it's trading above, they'll sell MSTR and buy Bitcoin. And so they've got this reflexive flywheel, which they now have going, which is basically, which they didn't have in the past. Up until in the past, it was very uncertain as to exactly what would happen. Now we kind of know what would happen. We also know that Saylor's basically said, look, if we need to, we will actually sell Bitcoin to buy STRC, which I think, by the way, will be his next move. I think that Saylor's next move, maybe next week or the week after, he'll say, look, we sold some Bitcoin and we actually used it to buy STRC and get STRC back towards that 100. So let's wait and see. But in the meantime, the markets basically said, look, they breathed a sigh of relief, so to say. And now you can see that basically the market's gone slightly up, but actually coming back down. The one thing I said on the weekend is I said, look, it's almost time to buy MSTR. Truth is, I was going to put in an order today, and the reason why I couldn't is because by the time that this news broke, we basically got MSTR basically spiked. I like buying things when the sentiment is very negative and we think it's going to collapse. And as you can see, I think that that's what's happened here. Interestingly, if you look at the MicroStrategy chart and you actually do a trend line on this chart, I'm not going to be very good at this because I'm looking at it on a very small screen, but you can actually see that just caused the chart to actually break out. And if you extend that chart over here to here, there we go. Kind of shows you that you've just broken that news just called MicroStrategy to break out on the, it's an hour time frame. Okay, that doesn't count. Let's see how we're doing on a much longer time frame. Here we are on the daily. On the daily, less so of a breakout. Still a little bit of a way to go on the breakout. So that's the MicroStrategy news. I've just got a message here from Vinny. He says, with all this news, Bitcoin is fighting 60K, still fighting 60K. Why? Maybe it's got to do with that BIP 110. If you guys didn't watch the show, just go and watch the show. Johnny, if you could just leave a link to that show. It's one of the best shows we've done in a hell of a long time. Hardest is basically sitting here going like this. Yeah. Anyway, so now Saylor, FUD out of the way. Saylor's got 17.4 months of dividend coverage. I will say that FUD is out of the way in the short term, but in the long term, I urge Saylor not to leverage up any more of his Bitcoin. You can see the market doesn't respond very well to it. Sit on your hands for the next couple of months. Just sit on your hands for the next couple of months. That's all you need to do, bro. Just sit on your hands. I don't know. Go on vacation. I'm going on vacation next week. You should come with me. I'm going to Greece. You should come with me. Tell Saylor to come with me, and everything will be okay. I do want to highlight again, and I've said it before, the news service that broke the Saylor news first was our 247 Wire. It's a free Twitter-based news service at 247 Wire. But look at the difference this time. We posted it, and only 5 minutes and 19 seconds later did the other people post it. Like the first other one was Ape Wire News, and they posted it 5 minutes after us. Guys, this is a free news wire. It breaks news. Look at this. It broke this news before. Hold on, sorry. It broke this news before anybody else, and it breaks a lot of news before anybody else. You can see that. Just go and follow it. I see there's like 3,000 people that already have. Also, we see other news wires are now quoting this news wire. So I did think that MicroStrategy was bottoming on the weekend. I still think maybe it is in the process of bottoming. I'll tell you another thing. I also think that Bitcoin is in the process of bottoming. This weekend, quite a big weekend in terms of the weekly close. So if you look at the weekly close, for the first time since 2023 October, we actually went below the 200-week moving average on the weekly. So on Sunday, we closed for the first time below the 200-week moving average. Now, that's very, very significant. Why? Because if you look at previous bear markets, we don't usually go under the 200-week moving average. That's usually the bottom of the bear market. Now, in this bear market in 2021, or 2022 bear market, we actually did go below it, but it was in the beginning. You could say the beginning of the bottoming process. And so breaking below it kind of says, look, maybe we're not tracking like the previous bear markets, but we're going to the 2021 bear market. Now, the bad news is that here, there was still another 40% between the time that we broke and the bottom. There was a 33% thing. And so I think we're in the start of the process of bottoming. And if you ask me, where do I think we are going to bottom? I think you need to look at this indicator over here. So I think you look at the 300-week SMA. Now here, you can see that Bitcoin really never goes below the 300-week SMA. It tapped below it over here for a couple of weeks, maybe 4 or 5 weeks, but that was really the bottom. That's the 300-week SMA. And that is at about, right now, at about 55,000, which kind of says, look, sentiment's bad. Sentiment's really bad. Look at that sentiment. More importantly, you can see, is that me shopping or my kids shopping on my credit card? It looks like the kids are shopping again. It's a big problem. So you can see here that you can go back on fear and greed for a long time. Fear and greed doesn't usually stay this low for this long. So sentiment has been really bad for really long. That usually is a sign that we may be bottoming. Now we've broken through the 200-week SMA. We could go down to 55,000, which would be kind of like my next level. And if we broke below 55,000, I think that would really be near the bottom, really. I'm also starting to see I don't know if you call it obituaries or Bitcoin is dead, but one of the two. I listened to this billionaire. His name is, what's his name? Jeremy Grantham, another billionaire to denounce Bitcoin as dead.
That goes to zero in your calculus?
No, years and years, decades and decades, it will dwindle away, I suspect, not with a bang, but a whimper.
And you think that because?
Because it's not a stable form of value. It just halved, didn't it, for no particular reason in a strong economy. So you can't depend on it in that way. And by the way, over the same time period, gold made a strong gain. Yes, it's down from the peak, but it's made a strong gain over that time period. People don't use it to make serious trades. They don't use it to buy their dinner and pay at the supermarket. So what the hell does it do? What it does is allows crooks to move money around without leaving a trace. Brilliant for them.
So I think if you were to change that headline, you could say, old man with orange tie shouts at orange coin. I mean, we see these Bitcoin is dead things every time we get towards the bottom of the bear market. That's another one of them. To me, that's a good sign. It's a sign that we are actually nearing a bottom. I do believe it is a chance that we're not going to go as low as the other bear markets in terms of a drawdown. Now, in terms of a drawdown, we're only 53% away from the last all-time high. And if you look at the previous drawdowns, we went down 93%, 87%, 84%, 77%. But we also didn't have that much of a bull market, right? So you've got to look at both sides, the bull market and the bear market. One of the other encouraging signs is that what you're seeing an ETF outflow. So in June, so far, nearly $4 billion flowed out of the ETFs. Now, the reason why I say it's a good sign is because generally the ETFs are wrong. The ETFs capitulate. That usually it says a Bitcoin bottom. And when the ETFs are peak buying, that usually calls the Bitcoin top. And right now, the ETFs are capitulating. That says to me that the bottom is very, very clear. So there's a lot of indicators that show that the bottom is very, very clear. Also, when you look on chain, there are some real good metrics which are telling you we are in the process of bottoming, right? The first one is the realized P&L. Now, what is the realized P&L? That is people who have actually realized their profit and loss, right? In other words, when have you taken profit and when have you taken losses? Now, here what you can see is that we are in the lows. We're almost in the lows, which indicate capitulation. So we're not there yet, but we're almost there. And you can see it probably better on this chart over here. The long-term holders. Now, the long-term holders are the ones that have weathered many kinds of storms, right? They've ridden up, they've ridden it down, they've held Bitcoin for a long time. And they usually capitulate last, right? Now, what you can see is that the long-term holders are starting to capitulate and starting to sell their coins, that's a good sign. I mean, I know you don't want to shake out your long-term holders, but when even your long-term holders start to capitulate, then you know that you're on the way to a capitulation. The supply in profit and loss has lost the trend line. This is the supply in profit and loss. Again, showing you how many people are in profit, how many people are in loss, has now lost this trend line. Now, we hope that this is a momentary loss in the trend line and we actually start climbing back up afterwards. This is the percentage of supply in profit and loss. And you can see that they've now crossed each other and they're doing what they do before the Bitcoin bottom. So this metric is also there. And then there is one other metric, well, two other metrics. One is the realized price band, which is between 43 and 53. We always go to the realized price band in a bear market. So, I mean, if you were to be extreme, you could say we go down to 53 and then go down below that to 43. if you were to go that far. And then this is a new one that I saw. It's called the 𝗬𝗙𝗄 block P&L count model. And again, this model, I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but effectively this model here basically shows that that we're almost nearing a bottom. So it does feel like we're almost nearing a bottom. Now, we'll say almost, probably the next 2 to 3 months, we find the Bitcoin bottom and we start moving back up. You ask me how low we're going to go. Somewhere between 45 and 55 would be my guess. Yeah. All right, so that's Bitcoin. Sorry, we're in the middle of winter and I'm starting to get a little bit sick. But anyway, that's another story for another time. Let's talk about altcoins, because there was some signs of life in the altcoin market this week. I don't know if you guys saw it, specifically inside the trenches, deep inside the trenches. I don't know if you saw, but Ansem launched a coin. The coin was called, it's called Black Bull, actually, the Black Bull. And it's Ansem's coin. It was launched here, 16th of June. And it did nothing until the 27th of June. And now it ran up to $130 million market cap. Now starting to come down to $90 million market cap. Now, look, I'm not a big fan of these coins. I know that all these coins end badly every single time. And I have no doubt that this coin ends the same way. All the other coins end on a slow road or maybe even a fast road back to zero. But it is nice to see some strength in the markets. It is nice to see some movements in the in the trenches, right? This is what this tweet here says. It says, Ansem low-key revving up the trenches, like him or hate him. He actually single-handedly shifted the vibes in the trenches. He gave people in the trenches hope. He's talking about an airdrop. He's talking about a stimulus, which is going out to people in the trenches. And what that's done is it's breathed new life into Solana. So if you look at the Solana versus BTC chart, that one just broke. So Solana showing some relative strength, maybe because of this, maybe because of the real world assets narrative, maybe because of the tokenized stocks narrative. Solana has a lot going for it right now. And it just shows you that the minute there's one pump, the apps on Solana start doing better. The Solana itself starts to do better, etc., etc. So look, I'm not a big fan of the meme coins. I'm not a big fan. I love Ansem. And I'm glad he did this, but I don't want to get involved. It's not, we went through this phase. We know how this phase ends. It's not where we want to be anymore. But great to see what he's done for the trenches. And if you are in the trenches, I really hope that you caught it. I hope you weren't like one of our analysts. I'm not going to mention names, but I'm convinced that this is a guy that actually worked here. He bought it. He held it. He sold it one day before. And he had 1.5% of the supply. 1.5% of the supply would have been $1 million. His 3,500 would be worth $1.35 million. I know who it is. How does you know who it is, right? You know who it is. I'm not going to mention his name because I think it's embarrassing. It's true. It's true. Someone says we are going lower this week. We could go lower this week. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin right now, we could be going lower this week. 50. Again, I don't think the pain is over. I think the pain is over between 45 and 55. Whether we get there with one big wick down or whether we get sliced to death on the way down, who knows? We don't know. We don't know. What else? Okay, so today is the 29th of June. Tomorrow is my wife's birthday, 30th of June. And then Wednesday, 1st of July. Now, what happens on the 1st of July, ladies and gentlemen? Hardest, what happens on the 1st of July? MiCA comes into effect in Europe, guys, on the 1st of July. You know that because you've been watching the show. One of the big problems that we have is that Binance didn't get a MiCA license in time because they were relying on Greece. And Greece was allegedly, and I said the word allegedly because Christine Lagarde, I don't want any letters from you unless it's a happy birthday letter for my wife. But we know that Christine Lagarde allegedly put her dirty paws into the process, and that's why Binance won't get a license, a MiCA license for the first. All right, so what happens now? Well, for first thing is we see Gate, we see OKX, and we see Coinbase licking their lips because they all did get MiCA licenses, and now they're going after the Binance base. If you have an account on Binance, listen carefully, okay? Number one, your funds are safe. Number two, you can close any positions that you want after the 1st of July, or you can just hold the positions. Number three, and quite importantly, you can withdraw your funds at any time, which means that, hey, if you have an account, just keep your funds in the account. And then if you want, when you do want to sell, you can sell because you can sell after the 1st of July. You just can't enter into new positions. And then you can just withdraw your assets. So withdrawals are safe. Withdrawals are safe. At the same time, I know that Binance is fast tracking an application via another another jurisdiction. I don't want to mention names because then you know what's going to happen. Christine Lagarde's going to go and stick her dirty little paws into that jurisdiction. You know how these people operate. Oh, you need money. You need money. You're reliant on the ECB, the European Central Bank. Well, if you need money from us, you better not give Binance a thing. And if you do, then we just won't give you money. Poor Greece. I'm going to Greece next week, actually. When I get there, I'm going to just open up my Binance account. The other thing is, just want to say, for those of you who are living in the EU, there are a lot of exchanges that don't require KYC. You know them. You know who they are. I know who they are. There are a lot of exchanges that don't require KYC. When you get to those exchanges, right, they don't require KYC. Bluefin doesn't require KYC. CoinW doesn't require KYC. All of others don't require KYC. When you get to the gate of those exchanges, they may say, hey, we can see that you are in Europe and therefore you don't have access to the exchange. And therefore, I introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, a thing called a VPN. If you use a VPN, you can pretend that you are anywhere you want in the world. I want to show you. I want to show you how it works. So wait, let me just get you a VPN. So right now I'm in South Africa, right? You know that because I told you I'm in South Africa. But now, oh, come on. Exit full screen. Okay, I want to show you this. So if I do this, that's a VPN. Now, if I use the VPN, I can tell this thing that I'm anywhere. I can say, hey, I'm in South Africa. So if you're in Europe and you want to just pretend that you're in South Africa, you just go South Africa. If I click this, I think I'll get disconnected from the internet, right? Because I'm not going to do that because it's going to disconnect me from the internet. Oh, wait. You can't see the VPN. Hold on. Can you see the VPN now? Let's see. Can you see the screen here? Hold on. Minimize. Okay. Weird. Yeah, they can't see. Anyway, that's what a VPN does. A VPN actually masks your location. Now, if you want a VPN, I will leave a link for you guys below to a VPN provider that we love and trust. It's called NordVPN. You know what the best thing is with this VPN, this NordVPN, is that now you got the World Cup soccer, and if you don't have a subscription to a service that actually allows you to watch. Sorry, I just want to get the screen open for you guys. If you don't have a subscription to a service that allows you to watch the soccer, basically what you can do is you can just pretend you're in a different country. Right? You didn't hear this. You heard none of this stuff from me. But you can just pretend that you're in a different country. And if you do pretend that you're in a different country, then effectively they don't know where you are, and then you just get free streaming of the soccer matches. That's how I've been watching the soccer matches. Now that South Africa's out, because South Africa is now out of the World Cup. Out. They played a good game. They did play a good game. They did okay. They did okay. Why can't I maximize this? All right, I think that's it for today, my friends. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Remember, if you haven't watched that show with Vinny, Johnny will leave a link below. If you need a VPN because you might be in Europe and you might just want to watch soccer or something, or just, I don't know, trade on an exchange that's non-KYC, then you might need that VPN. And for like $3 a month, actually it's less. It's $2.99 a month. But you need to know the price in euros because you're in Europe. You know what I mean, right? All right, it's all down there for you. See you guys again soon. Until then, trade well, my friends.